We are very excited to announce a new free ICSA webinar series on SMGA recovery. This series is specifically for second and multi-generational adult former cult members. However, this is going to be the first program for SMGAs that is open to all. In the past, ICSA workshops for this population have been limited to those who were themselves born or raised in cults. But we see the increasing need for mental health professionals, educators, academics, researchers, and others to understand the vast needs of second and multi-generational adult former cult members in their journeys in recovery. My name is Ashlyn Hilliard, and I work for the International Cultic Studies Association. I'm now very excited to present Heather Zweiback and Lorna Goldberg on their presentation, The Harsh Conscience. Heather Zweiback spent 8 years of her early childhood in a Bible-based group. She has attended ICSA's Connecticut workshop for those born or raised in cultic groups since 2015, becoming a co-facilitator in 2020. She is certified as a victim advocate through the National Advocate Credentialing Program and has a degree in safety, human resources, and accounting. Lorna Goldberg, LCSW PSYA, is a board member and past president of ICSA, is a clinical social worker and psychoanalyst in private practice and director at the Institute of Psychoanalytic Studies. In 1976, she and her husband, William Goldberg, began facilitating a support group for former cult members that continue to meet monthly in their home in Englewood, New Jersey. She has co-chaired ICSA's Mental Health Committee, published numerous articles in professional journals about her therapeutic work with former cult members, and contributed to chapters to several important texts on psychotherapy and cults. Most recently, Lorna co-edited Cult Recovery, a Clinician's Guide to Working with Former Members and Families. Lorna and Bill are founding facilitators of the Connecticut workshop for those born or raised in cultic groups.
Okay, today we're going to be speaking about the harsh conscience. We can say that the character is a person's habitual way of thinking, feeling, and acting. A person's character is made up of an integrated constellation of character traits. It is the therapist's role to notice and comment on the character of clients when a character trait might have a harmful effect. Over the years, I've noticed that many of the SGA MGAs with whom I have worked have had a harsh conscience, a perfectionistic character, and an abuser-victim worldview. Exploring this has been a central aspect of therapy. First, inborn attributes refer to our temperament, instinctual endowment, somatic tendencies, and intellectual capacities. For example, some children are born more aggressive than others. Second, children are dependent upon the care and protection of others. Characters shaped by interpersonal interactions and events experienced with parents or important figures like the cult leader. Character also is shaped by the meaning that the child gives to those experiences. We always are imagining the meaning of outside events. For dependent children to survive in the face of overwhelming anxiety experienced with an abusive or neglectful caretaker, there will be an attempt to maintain and protect positive memories apart from memories of abuse. 3, children develop an array of characteristics and defenses to gain love and protect themselves against losing love. Influences on self-regulation of children's emotions to manage life. Mutual experience. Ideally, children are helped to gain an understanding of their personal experience and to gain control of outward behavior through regulation by others. For example, if a child kicks and hits, his parents might say, "I know that you're angry, but you need to put those feelings into words rather than actions. Tell me why you are angry." In this way, parents help children to identify angry feelings and therefore learn how to gain control over anger. In contrast, if children are hit, screamed at, or punished for an angry or rebellious action, they learn that it's not acceptable to show anger. When traumatized, children are likely to dissociate, disconnect from their fear. Vanderkolk said, "We have brains to get along with other people." Experience of managing one's own, managing on one's own. Children who are unable to mutually regulate develop a need to self-regulate without help. For some, this can result in becoming overly self-reliant. A closed system is formed to prevent destabilization by sudden surprising intrusion and prevent abandonment by others. Others might be left with intense feelings that can be overwhelming. Children might outwardly become hypervigilant so as to avoid intrusion by others. Outward experiences become disconnected from inward experience. Other children might become hypovigilant, checking out rather than becoming anxious or angry. Identifications and counter-identifications made in childhood. Identifications are the earliest expressions of an emotional tie with another. Identifications often are made with those we love. The experience of loss of a loved one is made more tolerable by imitative identification. For example, a child singing to a doll at bedtime to lessen impact of loss of mother and to comfort herself. With abuse to protect themselves, children may focus intently on the abuser's postures, motions, facial expressions, words, and feelings in the hopes of calming or pleasing the aggressor and preventing harm in a chaotic, neglectful, and abusive environment. This behavior becomes a good coping and survival strategy. As a result, genuine reactions are replaced by a set of reactions that self-protectively manage the other person. At the same time, to live with the abuser, children's perceptions of their abuser are washed of the more damaging information and feelings. What is left is a set of defensive beliefs and strategies that are used to defend against fear. Many become accommodating. A few might not defend against the abusive behavior. They might become defiant or become determined never to treat others as they have been treated. Some children become a combination of the two. Cult leader is seen as extraordinary, all-powerful, and as an ideal being. The cult leader is parent to all. Each parent is robbed of parental authority and treated like a child or as a sibling to his own children. Each parent learns to gratify the needs of the leader and cult doctrine rather than his or her own individual needs and the needs of the child. As a result, parents often become neglectful. Some parents might keep anger away from the cult leader by displacing it onto their children and become abusive themselves. Some parents might secretly protect their children. These behaviors can vacillate over time. The need for physical and emotional dependence on the leader contributes to a misperception of the leader as strong and good because the leader defines good and evil. Ironically, the cult leader is quite dependent and externalizes his or her shameful dependent feelings by creating a group in which others are placed in a shameful state. Feelings of being shameful are connected to development of a harsh conscience. Submission. Rebellious or questioning behavior typically is dealt with negatively or harshly, and this serves as an example to all members, especially children. Therefore, to lessen anxiety, the child often learns that to be passive in order to be able to survive in response to the harsh, controlling nature of the cult leader. Further defensive strategies. Identification with the aggressor. Devaluation is the attitude which the abuser treats the victim, but it also can become the attitude that the survivor takes towards the self. In attempting to protect themselves in the face of overwhelming anxiety, children might identify with the person's attitude and thus project in attempting to protect themselves. Project danger, onto the outside and away from the anxiety-provoking person. Many children believe that to be strong, love, and succeed in the cult environment, they must be aggressive and like the leader. For example, children in cults might be encouraged to tattle on or rebuke others. Identification with the aggressor's attitude. In attempting to protect oneself in the face of anxiety, the perpetrator will disappear, as I've said before, external reality and instead become internalized. Therefore, children will incorporate the perpetrator's attitude. This leaves them with difficulty in realistically assessing responsibility for injury or trauma. The cult leader moves the responsibility for pain away from himself and onto the children or parents. Passivity. Defensive behavior to protect themselves. Action can initiate trouble. When attacked, as mentioned before, children become self-blaming, joining with the abuser's attitude. Parents might be blamed for the children's pain, for being unable to comfort the child sufficiently, or for failure to make the pain go away. The parents also might have shown passivity in the face of the abuse of the child, and this intensifies the cult leader's power. Additionally, in the parents' passivity diminishes them in the child's eyes. Some parents are already aligned with the cult leader's behavior, but others who might not tend to be abusive follow the cult leader's lead and become abusive themselves. After the experience of trauma, in which there might be an automatic dissociative response to defend against pain, an automatic dissociative response might be repeated in the future in the face of danger. This can lead the child to further re-victimization. New relationships might be experienced as power relationship with abusers and victims. Somatization. As van der Kolk says, the body keeps the score. That is, children's physical reactions speak when they cannot consciously allow themselves to know.
Okay, so we'll just talk a little bit about some healthy strategies that might develop. So like a hidden rebelliousness, so versus that passivity, a person might really like kind of try to fight against or recognize at least what is wrong, what's going on that's wrong. Maybe in small ways, maybe in big ways. Usually it's something simple like, I know if I lie, I'm gonna get, my butt kicked. but I get away with it like 50% of the time. So I'm just going to keep doing it and, see how it pans out. So just kind of keeping, so it's like some little semblance of like control over the situation and keeping like a little piece of yourself in what's going on. And then just use of intelligence for coping mechanisms. So like holding on to that kind of idea that I know for me, it's like that idea that I am smarter than the adults, and that kind of helped me in a way with a little bit of self-worth. Like it kind of helped me keep a little bit of that of like I, know how to navigate this. I'm like playing you kind of. I'm keeping, things going my way, even though it doesn't look like it to you. I'm seeing that. And then some people are able to find a healthy role model. So a lot of the hypervigilance kind of helps you to identify in a room like who are the like really bad people and then who are the good people, and then just gravitate towards those more safe people, even when you're all in an unsafe environment. And then that helps, later with identifying who are, good people maybe and who aren't, although obviously that sometimes doesn't work out. And then peer relationships were like extremely important because you're kind of in a situation where pretty much all the adults aren't safe. Like you can find, a couple that are in there that maybe are, but like kind of banding together with the other children to, yes, sometimes we rat each other out, but for the most part, like try to form kind of a we are the safe people and this is our where we can kind of be okay is with each other, and so like really strong relationships are formed that way.
Struggles in leaving the cult behind. It's very difficult in leaving the cult attitudes behind, and they continue into post-cult life.
So we're going through some of the common experiences of leaving. So the refugee experience, it's like stepping into a completely new world. And I'll say that, for me in my experience, I didn't know any of the rules. I didn't even speak the language in a way because, I had grown up with, like no curse words, using really big words, and like deceitful and lawless, and things like that. And most people aren't really using those words just on the street out here. So it was very like apparent that I did not fit in, that there was something off about me. And I would often be like taken advantage of, like jokes played on me and things like that because I didn't know they were jokes. So I didn't understand like sarcasm or, those kinds of things. So it's just a complete culture shock. And at the same time, it's like grieving this huge loss of this whole world that you lived in, like the only world that you knew. And trying to come to terms with like being sad about it while also everyone's kind of telling you, or you have realized on your own that it was like an abusive, environment. So like how do I balance that with like I'm missing all my friends that are there that are like no longer allowed to talk to me, but I know that this is for the best. So there's just like a lot of like fear and kind of trying to navigate all of that at the same time, right when you leave. So, and then I know talk about like, so there's the tendency either to like isolate, or to, like become rebellious or not be able to form relationships because, it's just too like too much kind of to surmount. And then sitting duck syndrome. So there are things that happen in groups, that and things that were like might have been a part of that we're just like trying to like work with. So it's like am I to blame for that? Like, and that speaks a little bit to the moral injury too, but like, am I, like, did I do something wrong? And then like how, like, because of that experience, I'm like now vulnerable to people taking advantage of that. My like insecurity, my like unknowing of, you know, who I am and all of that. It's like I'm a sitting duck, like just waiting for the next narcissist to come pick me up. Um, and then self-sacrificing, like we're always taught that we, you know, we don't matter, right? Like the group matters, God matters, you know, all these things, but like we don't matter. So when I walk out into a world, you know, where everyone is like kind of for themselves, they just like love a girl like me who's like, I don't matter. Yeah, I'll do that. Let me do that. I'll do all the things, you know? So very, again, sitting duck too, like just waiting for someone to take advantage of that. Um, and then kind of figuring out what is my moral code now. I know what the group taught me. I know what they say, you know, out here. But like, what do I think about it, and which things are okay to keep, you know, from the group? Is it all bad, you know, or is some of it okay? Um, and then lack of self-care, just not being taught at all ever how to take care of myself, except for in the way of like being forced to protect myself and, you know, loved ones, but like, you know, actual self-care. I didn't have any idea what that was probably until like, I don't know, 5 years ago. So definitely like when leaving, there's just, that's like not on the radar at all, because it just kind of feels like a survival like mode. Like I've got to navigate this whole new world, and I can't focus on anything else. So definitely focusing on all the things that are bad about me instead of focusing on the things that help me survive that experience and that are helping me continue to survive, you know. So just kind of honing in all the time with criticism on the things that I don't have, instead of these positive aspects that and I know, you know, like a therapist like Lorna can kind of help with an SGA, MGA with like pointing those out, you know, that you have resourcefulness, you have courage, you have action to improve your life, you're hardworking, and you're a defender of the most vulnerable. So definitely conflicts over pleasure. Like if you've been taught always that like good things are bad, like if things that are like good for you are bad, it's like very difficult to enjoy any experiences without like overthinking it. So you might enjoy it like in the moment, and then afterwards like, oh my God, that was bad. Like why did I do that? I shouldn't have. There might be a sense of failure of like, why couldn't I, you know, make this work? Why couldn't I, you know, follow through into the kingdom of heaven, or, you know, whatever. And then a fear of the outside world. So like this is like, I mean, my experience, I legitimately thought I was gonna die. It was a reaction to the difference in food, right? Like I'd been eating this kind of whatever, not very much food, like vegetables and whatnot. And then I came out and everyone was pumping me full of like pasteurized, you know, whatever, like here's some cheese, eat that. I'd never had cheese. So all of that, like, of course my body was like in distress, but I was positive that that was God, like he was killing me. And I was definitely going to like burn in the lake of fire. And, you know, so all of this, you know, while I'm trying to, my parents are like, okay, it's time to go to school, you know, I'm like, how am I going to go to school? Like I'm dying. So that was like a huge one for me, just like so much fear and anxiety, because I was having physical symptoms, but like, of course I was, because it was a huge change for my body. And then definitely like a black and white world. So, you know, like you kind of want to try everything that you were like not allowed to, but then at the same time, like that can be like dangerous. It can lead to like lack of moderation, to just doing every single thing. And then like kind of not knowing when to, pull back. So definitely feeling different. Again, first day of school, I remember I was wearing like this purple dress. And I think my mom had like put my hair in braids, and like I got, I had like secondhand clothes or whatever, and I got to school and I was just like, one of these is not like the others, like I did not. It was like you would have had to not pay attention at all to like point me out in a crowd and be like, what is up with that girl? So, and then also, just feeling like I have, different kind of thoughts and feelings than my peers too. Like they're not worried about all this stuff that like it feels like my brain's gonna explode all the time with like thoughts, and they're just like bopping along like what's going on? It's like sixth grade, calm down. A tendency to split off the past. So I definitely did that. I put like a line, and I was just like, once I realized that in order to fit in, I really need to be normal, I just crossed that off and like put that behind me. And I'm like, okay, you're going to be normal from today. Okay. And like, don't worry about that stuff. Obviously, you're fine. It didn't affect you. You're good. You're just going to be normal and fine. We're just going to focus on right now. And then the confused sense of morality, definitely like, okay, I knew these were the rules there, and like these are the rules here, but like what is the actual rules? What is right? I don't know. And then like dual personality, as far as for me, like I often like I portray and I have built up this super confident persona. I'm a go-getter. I'm like all these things that were really kind of triggered by my need for survival. Like that's what created that kind of character that I put out there to everybody. But then also feeling like, okay, but also I'm like this, shy kind of um, crippling anxiety, all these things. And like, how do I, like, which person am I going to be today? Or like, how do I make them be the same person?
There's demand for perfection in the cult. It's a mechanism used by the cult to manipulate members and keep them feeling small. The impossibility of perfection usually leads to depression. And the goal is to increase appreciation for positive aspects of the self while decreasing perfectionistic drive. The abuser-victim dynamic. SGAs can become involved with controlling people. They might see them as strong and offering guidance at a time when they feel so vulnerable and confused. Therapy needs to focus on helping SGA MGAs incorporate a more compassionate attitude towards themselves as well as others. Therapy needs to help SGA MGAs accept and integrate the split off self states, including identifications with the aggressor and the aggressor's attitude. These states undermine healthy intimacy in relationship, pleasure in accomplishments, and a belief in a good life. If these states continue to be defended against, they might lead to ongoing self-destructive behavior, depression, and/or anxiety and loss of control. Therapy can become a place where one becomes more aware of these behaviors and beliefs, as well as a place in which SGA MGAs can learn to find solutions and take actions on their own behalf. Taking actions to break through a passive or overly self-reliant orientation to life fosters a more positive feeling towards oneself and life. A therapeutic relationship in which the therapist treats the client with compassion and respect becomes central to helping this change occur. Goals of therapy. The therapist needs to be trustworthy. If she makes a mistake, she apologizes and shows that she is remorseful, but she doesn't beat herself up. She sees mistakes as opportunities to learn. Hopefully, the SGA-MGA client will forgive and see this as a model of self-compassion. Self-forgiveness combats cult shame. Necessity of moving from an overly punitive attitude towards self to attitude of loving, caring, and nurturing self. Moving away from black-white thinking, accepting oneself and others as good but imperfect. Influence of compassionate relationships. Influence of self-care. This is the path towards internal repair. Thank you for joining us today.